Yo, what is going on, everyone? Welcome back to the channel. My name is Hart, for those of you that are new, and today I'll be breaking down this 7-game NBA slate here for Thursday night on DraftKings. Going to be talking through my favorite plays, who I like, who I don't like, game-by-game breakdowns, all that good stuff in this video. Throw some early look core plays into the lineup as well for you guys, kind of get a better sense of who I'm looking to kind of target and attack. Based on the news right now, obviously it all changes once we get more news, when we get closer to the slate lock. So make sure to stay updated with the news, hit that like button and subscribe, and let's get right into it. So before I do, just want to take a quick look at my lineup tonight. Right now, I think I'm like 4 or 5 points out of cash. But yeah, with Scotty Barnes, surprisingly was a little bit more owned there, but he's doing pretty solid. Brandon Ingram's doing really well, obviously super high owned. We got the news that Zion was out, so I absolutely loaded up on the Pelicans in an absolute smash spot against the Wizards. Caleb Martin, first time play Caleb Martin this season. He's been absolutely smashing it, as you guys can see here from his game log. Playing a ton of minutes, playing super, super well. He's pretty much been averaging like 30 plus fantasy points the past 6, 7, 8 games. Of course, I play him only 90% ownership. He has 2 points at halftime. So super frustrating there. Sadiq Bey, same thing. The dude is like 0 of 5. I don't even know what he is. He hasn't hit a shot. Absolutely terrible. 3% owned. PJ Washington, I had J Val in there. I switched down to PJ Washington, another solid spot here. Playing a ton of minutes there with, Nick Richards starting at the 5. They could go small PJ Washington, a guy that can easily go for 30 plus if he gets minutes, stay out of foul trouble. What do you know? Hurts his shoulder, 3 fantasy points. He's out. And then obviously I knew that's LeBron or AD would get ruled out. So I wanted to load up more on the Lakers, but at the same time, I kind of want to go a little bit more balanced build, load up on the Pelicans in a better spot. Um, I guess they're both pretty good spots, but still went with Reeves there, and then Najee and Trey Murphy to kind of fill out my lineup there. So yeah, I mean, it was looking like it was going to be a fantastic night, but obviously having a guy who's hurt, PJ Washington, is going to absolutely screw me, and then Caleb Martin and Sadiq Bey having their worst shooting games of the season, not going to do well. So I'm fighting for cash right now. So hopefully my other guys can have big games. But we'll see if I cash. But I was able to cash yesterday, so would have been 2 for 2 if it wasn't for a random injury. But heading into these games here, we have Cleveland versus Boston on the Cleveland side here. Obviously, not a good matchup going against Boston. Blowout risk. Boston is very good, as we all know. So Donovan Mitchell going to be, more so of a contrarian play. He's been pretty solid recently, as you can see, against Orlando. Great defensive team. He put up 55. That was alongside Garland. The big news is kind of Mobley, if he's still out, which it looks like he will be. We could get a little bit of value, but still, I think Donovan Mitchell is really the only interest for me right now in this team. Maybe a little bit of Jared Allen. He does have some upside. They'll need him against Porzingis, so he should see solid minutes if he can stay out of foul trouble. So I say those two probably have the most interest to me. Levert, if he's not on a minutes limit, I do like him off the bench. He should be pretty aggressive. Came back, only played 23 minutes, so keep an eye out on that. So if there's no minutes limit, he'd probably be my favorite play. Now, if there's a minutes limit, it'd really just be Jared Allen and Donovan Mitchell for me, and that's really it. Sure, you can land on a Okoro, but moving on to Boston here. So right now, I guess we'll put Levert in here. Just obviously, we do have to wait for that news. Moving on to Boston here. Tatum, I think it's a very cheap price tag, even though their team's fully healthy for Tatum. 9-7 running the whole offense. Very strong price tag for him, especially if there is no Jaylen Brown. That would make Tatum even more viable and make guys like White, Holiday, Porzingis a little bit more aggressive offensively. They'd all be pretty strong plays. Now, if Brown's in, the rest of the guys are more so just secondary options. If you land on them, Drew Holiday would probably be my favorite, even though he's been very up and down, not the most aggressive offensively, playing alongside those guys. But we know he has a pretty high upside with those steals and blocks. For the rest of the team, that's really it. I mean, if you think this game blows out, Pritchard's seen okay minutes off the bench. You could land on him, but that's really it. Moving on to Chicago and Miami here for the Chicago side. Zach's still out. Caruso's questionable. So once again, DeMar, Vooch, Kobe White going to lead this team. They're all priced about right, so there's no real standouts to me. I think I'd feel the safest with Vooch. I mean, he just has that double-double upside. Been pretty strong recently, so I feel the safest with him. Then probably Kobe, just because he has that assist upside and is getting some rebounds recently. So I think those two are probably safest. Vooch leading the way, then Kobe, then DeRozan. Pat Williams, I just don't love the price tag. He's very up and down, boomer boss. Don't think you need to get him at that price tag, especially if Caruso's back. If he's back, no minutes limit, I'd really like him as well. They're at 5.3K. They're going to need him in his defense. Otherwise, they did start Io over Caruso. played 38 minutes. He just not the best point per minute guy, especially when they're not going to need him offensively. So he'll just be more so a 3 and D guy. So I think it'd be an okay play. Nothing too crazy there. Drummond will get a tad bit more minutes. As you can see, nothing too crazy has changed, even with Zach being out. They're not having any big men. So that's really it. Torrey Craig is there if you're looking for a little bit of value. Moving on to Miami here. Big news is Bam. Right now, still out. Same thing with Hero. So, going to be the Jimmy team. Revenge game for him. So, I don't mind if it's a spin up play. Caleb Martin, price went up. Obviously, doing absolutely horrendous today. But still, I think he's a strong secondary option. Same thing with Duncan Robinson. Same thing with Jaime. And then, once again, if Kyle Lowry, I don't know the minutes he'll play tonight, especially on a back-to-back tomorrow. But he's an option. And then Kevin Love is definitely an option, especially if there's going to be no Highsmith and Richardson. He'll be the main guy off the bench there. So, a little bit of interest here in Miami, but nothing too crazy for me. Moving on to Minnesota versus Dallas here. Big news is Anthony Edwards. If he's out, obviously Karl Towns looks fantastic. Then off the bench, I would have some interest in Naz Reid at 5.5K. But there's really no one that really steps into that role there for Anthony Edwards that you really go crazy about. Like, they're already priced up Conley to 6.5. Gobert's all the way up to 7.5. It's not like he's going to step up huge offensively. Troy Bounds 5.1, but just very, very bad. He's starting in place of Anthony Edwards. So nothing too crazy there. It's really just Towns, Naz Reid for me if there's no Edwards. And then if there is Edwards, it's just Towns and Edwards for me. On to Dallas here. Once again, Luka looks fantastic at 11.9K, going to lead this team. Exum, I mean, he was an okay play, but with his ownership last slate, going 7 of 9 from 3, going for 42.5, that's just absolutely egregious. But yeah, 6.6K for Exum, will not play him. Too high for me. Lively's been really, really solid if he could stay out of foul trouble. It does have that double-double upside. Been really, really good at getting blocks and steals as well. So don't mind if you land on him, but I'd rather get to Tim Hardaway, who is fantastic for me at 3.3% ownership last slate. Super score independent, as you can see, but he's going to be the second option offensively. So I think he looks really interesting as well. And then Derrick Jones Jr., if he does play, he should play huge minutes. There's no minutes limit for him. Not the best offensively, but still, he's going to be playing big minutes. So I like him. I'd like, Grant Williams, who played 40 minutes. Once again, more of a shooter, but still 5K for a guy who's going to play huge minutes. Really like both of them if they're in. Obviously, if, Derrick Jones Jr. is out, it's just more minutes for Grant Williams. Going to be playing him once again. And then off the bench, Curry was questionable because he did get hurt, missed a lot of the game, most of the game. And then guys like, Hardy got some run, but nothing too crazy there. And I will mention Holmes. He is the backup 5 right now. So if you think, Lively gets the foul trouble, Minnesota is big, so they will need some backup bigs. So you could definitely take a shot on Holmes at 3.4K there as a very cheap value play. Moving on to Brooklyn here. We have Bridges at the top, 8.7K. Do not love that price tag. I'd rather get to Dinwiddie or Cam Thomas. Cam Thomas still 8-21. Did not play well that last game against Sacramento. Just not shooting the ball well. Pretty score independent, but still absolutely love the upside there with the shot attempts. That's really it. No one else really sticks out to me. Everyone else is kind of fairly priced. On the Denver side here, Jokic, just slightly too pricey for me. I mean, especially if you're going to be playing Luka, going to be really hard to get to Jokic as well. But yeah, I think they're all fairly priced. If Jamal Murray is in no minutes limit, I'd really like him. He went for a 51 bomb there in 29 minutes against Atlanta. So if he's good to go, no minutes limit, I do think I'd want to get to probably him, a piece of him, because he's coming in at a really, really strong price tag and a pretty solid matchup there against Brooklyn. On the OKC side here, SGA looks fantastic. It should be a really, really good game here. He's been fantastic this season. So really, really like SGA here. Chet, a strong secondary option. Still one of those things where he's just not shooting the ball a ton, but he's been making up for it with the blocks. As you guys can see here, 4, 6, 3, and 2 in the last 4 games. Has double-double upside. So I do think he's a strong secondary option for this team. Jalen Williams would probably be my second favorite behind SGA. As you can see, he has that upside, but kind of up and down in terms of his play. Giddey, I mean, we know the upside with him, but he's just very up and down, dealing with a lot off the court. So that's really it for me. I don't think I'd want to dip down into any of the value. It's really just sticking to kind of with the main starting 5. On Sacramento here, the prices are dropping for a guy like Fox and Sabonis. I think this is just way too cheap of a price tag for Sabonis. I mean, like the dude's averaging 50 a game, and they dropped him down to 9.3K. Not really sure why. So I'm going to throw him there in the interest player pool. And that's really it. Monk does have that upside, but he's just more so a GPP play. Herder, Murray, they're there. I like the minutes for King and Murray, kind of the third option. But it's kind of tough landing on him, even though he's 5.9K. And that's really it. I do like Trey Lyles as like a cheap value play. 4.1K, should play about 20 minutes. He's usually a decent point per minute guy. Moving on to Utah here versus Portland. For the Utah side, Laurie is playing tonight, so we'll see if he's able to go on a back-to-back. If he is, he's going to lead the team. I'd really like him here at 8.5K. Would be a great play there, leading the team offensively. Rest of the team, kind of priced about right for me. Keontae George at 7K, don't love that, even though they really need a secondary option. It'll be him. It'll be a little bit of Sexton. It'll be a little bit of Kelly Olynyk off the bench. So these guys are there, but really no interest for me because they'll play everyone all the way down to Chris Dunn. So could you go to him for some value? Sure. But right now, it'd really only get into Laurie for me. That'd really be the only interest on the Utah side. Portland side here, I have a lot of interest in Anthony Simons. He is playing a ton of minutes and he's shooting the ball a ton. Since he's come back, 27, 21, and 23 shot attempts, almost averaging 38 minutes per game. I mean, that's insane usage for a 7.8K. So I'm going to throw him there in the player pool. Obviously, we can't fit all these guys in the lineup right now. Just throwing them in there in a player pool. So we'll throw them in there. We'll get back to throwing Karis LeVert in here as well. Obviously, there's a bunch of news. Can't fit all these guys in the lineup, but still, these are the guys who kind of have a lot of interest in, based on the news we know now and possible outcomes. That's really it for me on the Portland side. I mean, Shaedon Sharpe has also been playing super well, playing a ton of minutes. But I'll see if Brogdon's back. It will hurt a little bit of Sharpe's upside and slightly Anthony's as well, but still, Anthony's going to be the number one guy here on this team. And I do think, at some point they're going to trade Brogdon, so Sharpe will be the number two. But right now, I'd say they're kind of tied, so it kind of hurts each other's value. Or upside, I should say. Before going to state here, we got the news that Draymond's suspended indefinitely. Thank the Lord. That dude is an absolute clown. If it wasn't for Steph and Clay, that dude would be in the circus because that dude is an absolute clown. Also, Adam Silver, please send the Pistons to the G League, banish them, send them, suspend them indefinitely, the whole organization alongside Draymond. I'm tired of seeing them on the schedule. It's just infuriating. They're the worst team in history. Besides that, Steph Curry coming in at a fantastic price tag here, 9.4K. With Draymond out, they're probably going to start Saric or Kuminga. They'd both be strong options at that price tag. Even whoever comes off the bench is going to be a strong option. So those three, Steph, Saric, Kuminga, going to be the most interesting plays. Paul Thompson, Wiggins, going to be more so secondary options. Pods has been playing, pretty well recently. He's been pretty productive as well. So 5.3K, he'll come off the bench, but could have a random pop-off game. Wouldn't mind landing on him. And then Moody will play a decent amount as well. So there's some decent interest in this this Warriors team right now. But I'd stick with the main three I mentioned. And then on the Clippers side, Paul George missed that last game. I played him last night, so 2 nights in a row, got massive injuries, kind of screwed me. But Kawhi Leonard, if there's no Paul George, looks really good spend up. James Harden looks, even better, 8.2K. He'd step up. It'd be interesting to see who starts from. They did start Powell that last game, 5.7. If he starts, he'd be a strong play. Otherwise, not much interest for me in the Clippers besides that. So that is the breakdown. Hope you guys liked the video. Hit that like button and subscribe. Obviously, stay updated with the news on Twitter. I'll see you guys next video. Peace.